What's up, gamer? It's Coobs here. You know, maybe I haven't said it in a while, but I'm proud of you. You never give up. You always just keep going, keep pushing on, even though sometimes things are kind of tough. And I really admire that about you. And I'm really glad that you're here today, so thanks for being here. We got an invasion today we're going to take a look at. Sometimes when I do these videos, I'll put together a bunch of, clips, like a compilation of different invasions, and usually with like a particular build and maybe a theme in mind. And so we'll get to see, several examples of invasions, and maybe we can learn from each of those encounters. This one's just going to be one lengthy invasion, and it was I'm going to say it was a good invasion. And that's obviously my opinion. So maybe you'll watch this and you'll go, that was a terrible invasion, Coobs. What are you thinking? But for me, this was a really good invasion. And I think that there's certainly a lot that maybe a new invader or just an invader who's looking to learn and improve their abilities, their skill, their game knowledge, things like that, could watch this and they could learn at least a thing or two from it. I've learned a lot from watching fellow invaders. I think that that's a big part of what even got me into, wanting to invade in the first place, was seeing how much fun other people were having doing it. But of course, as you get into it and as you continue to progress and really fall in love with this invasion mechanic, there's always things that we can be learning. We got a brand new cannon with the expansion, and I'll go ahead and put the requirements on screen here so that you can kind of compare. I've talked about this before. I believe every invader should have at least one of these items on their character at all times because of the versatility that it provides to you throughout an invasion. What I really like about this new one is that the strength requirement is a little bit lower. It has a slightly higher dex requirement, but it also has this tracking component almost. Like if you hold down the trigger before just releasing it, the bolts almost curve, which is really cool. So highly recommend checking out the new cannon. I think that it's going to, just add more versatility to our builds. It has a higher weight requirement than the hand ballista does, but a lower strength requirement and a higher dex requirement. So, optimization, min-max stuff, it might be best for some builds and other options might be better for others, but I think that it's a really cool addition. Really happy to see it. Let's talk a little bit about this invasion. So when we first get here, I noticed that we have a fellow invader, and almost immediately when we find the host and their phantom, that fellow invader is taken out pretty quickly by the Swift Slash Ash of War. They have patched Swift Slash since this invasion took place, and I actually haven't really played much since the patch, but from what I hear, it's pretty good balance-wise, which is awesome to see that, within 2 weeks of the release, we've got a good balance patch for fixing some of the issues that the new fun tools brought to the game. Another thing that I'm noticing while I'm watching this back is that the host, you might have seen it a couple of times already, the host is using Melania's blade, katana, whatever it's called, and anytime that they go to use the Ash of War, I'm using my Ash of War Sacred Blade and basically just knocking them right out of their animation. And so early on in this invasion, I found that this is going to be my counterplay to this specific move. Now, if the host is not going to change their approach, then anytime I see them jump and use their Ash of War, I'm going to immediately respond with that counter because I saw that it worked one time. Why not use it again, right? I'm using the new Dueling shield in this invasion, and this is actually one of the first invasions that I did with this new weapon. So I'm by no means an expert with this weapon class. I'm really kind of figuring things out. And that's another like component of what led to this invasion really standing out for me, is because it's not so much my knowledge and skill with the particular weapon that I'm using, but it's more about the game sense that I have, the psychology of other players. When are they going to pursue me? When are they going to fall back? You can see that they really want to stay around the boiled prawn shack. And another thing I'd like to mention really quickly before the thought escapes my mind is that and I've mentioned this before, I think I will always have respect for gamers that are using the Taunter's Tongue and luring invaders into their world. We don't always have to agree with each other as invaders, so you are fully welcome to have your own opinions about these players, but they're giving me the best chance that I could hope for when it comes to an invasion by allowing me to have a second invader come in. And while it's not constant, you'll notice that the opportunities that I take when I know that I have backup are like crucial to the success or failure of this invasion. I almost got caught right there. Like the Phantom really got a lot closer than I was expecting. And I've already kind of mentioned this is before Swift Slash received its nerf. And so immediately when I clock that the Phantom is using that ability, I know how crucial my spacing is going to be throughout this entire engagement. That's one of the main things that I think I've learned from watching other invaders, and also from getting into the arena. I don't do very many duels or go into the arena very often, but when I do, I try to be mindful of my spacing. I think that if you're just invading regularly, you're going to come across certain, encounters that really kind of boil down to you and the host, and you can kind of test out your abilities in like a one-on-one duel in those sorts of environments. And that's certainly really helpful too. But understanding spacing and understanding the timing windows of when I can attack and when I need to fall back are really crucial. There we were a sliver away from defeating this Phantom, which would have given us a whole new boost of confidence for this invasion if we could have taken him out. Unfortunately, we didn't have enough of our fan daggers left in our inventory to do so, and he's able to heal up. Anytime that I know that I have a fellow invader, I'm trying to kind of divide the hosts and their Phantom. I want to attack one or the other, but I also have to be really conscious of the fact that my fellow invader could easily kill me. That particular invader was using Malekith's Blackblade a lot, and anytime that they're using that Ash of War, that's going to hurt me if I get too close. So while I want to swarm the enemy and I want to jump in there and relieve pressure for my fellow invader, I have to be mindful that they aren't necessarily going to be as considerate with me and my positioning when they use certain moves like that. So you got to kind of be careful in those situations. Anytime that I can, I'm trying to optimize my time management, if that makes sense. So there I just switched from my fan daggers to my poison bone darts because I want to be able to have that at a moment's notice, be able to throw out a couple of quick shots to do a little bit of damage when I need to, maybe to finish somebody off. But I'm also being very cognizant of the fact that those enemies are just kind of standing there and they could approach me or pressure me at any time. Liurnia is a fantastic map for these sorts of invasions because it's so vast and sprawling in its nature that you can really kind of go in any direction and hope that you're going to find some assistance from the mobs in the world. And these lobsters have been playing a really key role in helping alleviate, again, some of that pressure that you feel sometimes as an invader. So map knowledge, it goes a really long way, and I think that that's probably one of the things about the new areas that have been brought to us with the Shadow of the Erdtree. That's going to be like the steepest learning curve for some of us, I think, is learning the enemy placements, learning the shortcuts, learning the different ways to get around the map. That's going to be where a lot of our interplay in these invasions comes from. Now, each of us is going to be different when we approach invasions, and sometimes we maybe aren't looking for a long and drawn out fight like this, and that's okay. You know, if you're looking for that instant action, I want to just run in, it's either them or me, and I'm going to move on to the next one, that's totally acceptable. If you don't want to spend 15 minutes doing a single invasion, that's you know, I understand that. But for me personally, it's one of the highlights of this mechanic, of this gameplay element, is when we have these sort of long and drawn out engagements where we're not, you know, I'm not killing him in one hit, he's not killing me in one hit. They might be trying to. If I get swarmed, I'm certainly going to go down pretty quickly. But there's this back and forth to the encounter. Anytime that a fellow invader comes into the world and they eliminate that invader, they're getting flasks back, right? I'm also getting flasks when that invader dies. So kind of a double-edged sword there. I don't want my fellow invader to die, because I would like them to be able to help me with this invasion. But when they do, I'm able to take advantage of that opportunity, use my flask to refill my FP gauge, use my flask to top off my health, because I know that I'm getting one back, and that helps kind of elongate this process. I'm also just kind of keeping an eye out for things that are working. Again, this is a new weapon for me, so I don't really know its strengths and weaknesses to this full extent. One of the things that I have noticed is that the running R1 is pretty good, but that the running R2 is kind of strange with this one, especially when you're two-handing the weapon. You kind of like do this long and drawn-out wind-up, but then it doesn't really give you much forward momentum on the attack itself. So if your enemy is rolling away when that attack comes out, it's not like you're going to catch them in their roll. It's actually more so that you're just going to kind of whiff. And so I'm kind of learning as I go the strengths and the weaknesses. I'm learning. See, I've done that twice now in the last minute. That if I run and then I kind of do like a, you know, I swoop back and I come back at him, that he's not going to react to it in time. Here again, maybe a little bit late on my release of my Ash of War, but I see that he's going for his Ash of War, and I'm going to try to counter it. Again, there we are. We're getting kind of caught off guard by the Phantom, and that those moments, that could have very easily been the end of this entire invasion. If I got caught a second sooner, or just got kind of stuck in a blender between their attacks, between Melania's Waterfowl Dance and the Swift Slash. I mean, I could have been absolutely decimated there. Here we've got our fellow invader coming in, and they're gone. You know, they're gone as soon as they get there. And so again, it's mentally for me throughout this entire encounter, I'm realizing that patience is one of the things that is really at my side. It's something that I have to constantly be mindful of. I can't overextend myself. I can't try to capitalize on the wrong opportunities. I know that invaders are constantly being filtered into this world, so I'm going to try to take advantage of that. If I can buy myself a little bit of time, if I can find another enemy in the map, these sorts of different things. This is the sort of invasion or engagement that this host and their Phantom, they have likely been sitting at this shack all afternoon, and they've been eliminating invaders left and right. And we were able to come in, and we were able to apply what we have learned and overcome. I really appreciate you for being here. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. I have been and always will be Coobs. Peace and love to you, gamers. Don't you dare go hollow.